Hi everyone, welcome back to That Agile Autistic. Today I want to answer a question that I've been asked often, usually from people who suspect they are part of the neurodivergent spectrum. Is it worth getting a professional diagnosis for autism or ADHD? Well, the short answer is it depends. Self-diagnosis is valid, and for many people, a formal diagnosis isn't necessary. But there are some situations where it might help. So let's talk about when it's useful, when it's unnecessary, and why the system shouldn't make it so hard to get accommodations. The reality is, many of us were failed by the system. If you weren't diagnosed as a child, it's not because you weren't neurodiverse, it's because doctors didn't know what to look for. Autism research used to focus on young, white, cis boys, often leaving out women, people of color, and gender-diverse individuals. For many, self-diagnosis isn't just an internet trend, it's a lifeline. It's the first step toward understanding themselves, healing from past experiences, and finding a community that actually gets them. The formal diagnosis process can be long, expensive, and in some cases even traumatic. There are many reasons why some people never get diagnosed. First, doctors dismiss symptoms all the time. Many adults, especially women and people of color, are told they don't look autistic. Neurodiverse traits are overlooked or mislabeled as anxiety, depression, or personality disorders. It's also expensive. In many countries, getting assessed for autism or ADHD can cost thousands of dollars. Insurance often doesn't cover it. Next, there's a fear of stigma. A diagnosis can be used against people in custody battles, immigration status, or employment. Some people even worry about being treated differently by family or colleagues. And masking makes it harder. Many adults learn to suppress their neurodivergent traits, and that makes it difficult for even specialists to recognize them. So if you've done the research, connected with other neurodiverse folk, and see yourself in their experiences, you probably know yourself better than any doctor who's only going to spend an hour or two with you. Doctors get things wrong all the time. If you don't need accommodations or medical support, a formal diagnosis might not even be necessary for you. All that being said, there are times when a professional diagnosis can be useful, and here's a few situations where it might be worth considering. If you're looking for workplace or school accommodations, some places will require official documentation before they'll offer you support. You may have co-occurring conditions. Many neurodiverse folk also deal with anxiety, depression, or other conditions that do need medical treatment. Speaking of medical treatment, you may need access to medication. For those with ADHD, getting prescribed medication usually requires an official diagnosis. You may need some legal protections, and having a formal diagnosis can help in situations like disability claims or legal disputes related to discrimination. Finally, family validation. If your family doesn't believe you, a formal diagnosis might help them take it seriously, and getting that diagnosis can open the door to conversations around support. With all that in mind, there are still downsides to seeking a diagnosis. A diagnosis can be helpful, but the process isn't always easy. The waitlists are long. Many clinics and professionals have waitlists that can stretch for months or even years. The assessments are subjective. Many professionals still rely on outdated criteria that don't fully capture the neurodiverse experience. There's also an emotional toll. Some people come away feeling invalidated or gaslit by medical professionals, and if any of these factors make the process overwhelming, it's okay to choose self-recognition over a formal label. Now, the problem with the diagnosis process is that accommodations shouldn't require a diagnosis, and that's the real issue. Right now, too many people are forced to jump through hoops just to get basic support. But accommodations should be available to everyone without needing to prove anything, and this is why universal design matters. It ensures adults or commonly misdiagnosed groups like women and people of color aren't left out. It helps those who will struggle to advocate for themselves, because not everyone is ready to disclose their diagnosis, and nor are we entitled to breach their privacy. It recognizes that everyone has challenges and could benefit from flexibility. It also removes unnecessary barriers, making work and school environments more inclusive by default. Accommodation should be the default, not something people have to fight for. And for those of us working in HR or managers in professional settings, let's be real. No one pretends to be neurodivergent. What people do pretend to be is okay. They mask, they push through burnout, and they struggle silently to meet those neurotypical expectations. So do you need a professional diagnosis? No. If self-diagnosis feels right for you, that's enough, full stop. However, if you need accommodations, support for co-occurring conditions, or family validation, a formal diagnosis might help. Either way, you deserve support. If you feel safe doing so, consider disclosing and asking for the help you need. If you're in a leadership role, assume positive intent, lead with curiosity, and show compassion. The system needs to do better, but until it does, let's support each other. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you considered getting a professional diagnosis? What has your experience been like? Drop a comment below and let's talk about it. And if you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear this. Anyway, I'm awkward, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave now. I'll see you next time. Bye.